Yeah, just see.
Ready?
Yes, we are live.
Namaste, Hare Krishna. To my viewers, I welcome each one of you to my session on Hindu culture and lifestyle on our page, hinduscriptures.com on FB. So today, as promised, we have a very huge devotee of Krishna who has written quite a few books and who's an ardent devotee of Srila Prabhupada also. So before we start our session, I would request Andy Fraenkel ji, Namaste.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, we always start our session with the prayer. I request you to do a prayer today instead of me.
Well, we are famous for the Hare Krishna prayer, so I'll do
Sure,
that.
anyone you like.
So, well, of course, there's Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, because we're dealing with Shastra. Hare
Yes.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So before we start our session, I would like to give a small introduction of yours to our audience. Andy Fraenkel ji is a recipient of West Virginia Artist Fellowship Award, Indie Book Award, Storytelling World Award. He offers presentation in a variety of venues and events, including revisiting Indus Saraswati civilization in ancient India, 1996, Religious Communications Congress 2000, Dharma Conference 2003. His programs delve into stories and teachings of Mahabharata, Ramayana, Bhagavad Puran. Akka Sankirtan Das, that is his spiritual name. He is a disciple of S.C. Vedant Swami Sri Prabhupada and a long-time resident of New Vrindavan in USA. So Prabhuji, over to you. I would like to ask you, how did you come to know about ISKCON, about Sri Krishna, about Prabhuji, and please share something about your journey.
Many years back, this is in 1967 and 68, when I was going to college in New York City. Actually, I grew up in New York, but I was born in Germany. And my mother was a German Lutheran, and my father was a Polish Jew. And so I came over to America when I was only 5 years old. And I came from a little village in Germany called Wasserburg. And so for me to come to New York, it was a total shock. And I've been still recuperating from it ever since. But I met the devotees in the Lower East Side. Prabhupada had established a center in the East Village. And I was also living there as a hippie. That's where the hippies lived in the 1960s and 70s. And so I was not very far from Prabhupada's first center that he had there. And my wife and I, we met in college, and we gradually developed this journey together. So we've been together for over 50 years. And we met Srila Prabhupada later on in Detroit in 1971. And then we took initiation from Prabhupada. We joined the Hare Krishna movement formally and took initiation from Srila Prabhupada in 1973. And so many people, when you talk to different religious people, usually people are saying, my religion is right, others are wrong.
True, that's a very common
Prabhupada
myth.
never said that. A reporter asked Prabhupada once, why did you come to America? And he said, I've come to make Christians better Christians, Jews better Jews, Hindus better Hindus. So for a real Hindu, they'll never say, they honor all religions. All religions are coming from the path of the divine transcendent nature. So there's no competition, but there should be a general appreciation for the different faiths, for the way people worship a little differently, for the way they view the world a little differently. So there's so much diversity in nature. You know, there's the trees and the flowers and the plants, so many different vegetables, so many different fruits. There's so much diversity. But when
Right.
it comes to God, we should only say, oh, there's only one, one way. No, there's a variety of diversity. And so in religion and in spirituality. And so Prabhupada, he taught us this is all found in the Vedic wisdom.
True, very true. But then, how did you like? What was your first impression about Hindu culture and the scriptures? Because our main focus is about scriptures. So I want to know, what did you find in Hindu scriptures?
You know, the interesting thing is when I was in college, this is even before I even talked to the devotees and went to their center. I was in the library, the college library in New York, where I was attending college. And I came across a book from 1914, and it's about the stories of India, ancient India. And
Right.
one of the stories was about Yudhisthira and the dog. How
Right.
Yudhisthira and his brothers, they left the kingdom and they were followed by a dog. And I was very fascinated with that story. And in college, I was majoring in theater. And we were doing a theater project where we would do several different short pieces of plays together and present them to the public schools. And I wrote a script for this story of Yudhisthira and the dog. And that was one of the 4 plays that we presented together in my college group to the public schools. And so I was very fascinated originally with these beautiful stories from the Mahabharat and from the Ramayana. But the thing is, you know, Prabhupada never really used the word Hindu so much. He called this Sanatan Dharma or Varnashram Dharma, the Vedic culture. These are the references that he made, Vaishnava tradition. Hindu word is imposed in India. And
True.
you know, so I understand that your project is Hindu scriptures, and I think people need to get a better understanding of the definition, because people
True.
approach it in a lot of different ways. One way people might approach it, thinking, this is an ethnic culture. Are you a Hindu? Means that, are you born in India? That's one way to look at it, as an ethnic culture. Another way that Prabhupada taught us to look at it as a universal religion. And so it wouldn't, you know, if you have Christian, you find Christians all over the world. And so also Muslims, Buddhists. And now by you know, over the last 100 years, since Vivekananda came to America, now we're also, the American public is also experiencing this Vedic culture. But back in 1831, the first personalities to appreciate Vedic culture here in America were called the transcendentalists. So you have Emerson and Thoreau and Walt Whitman, these great scholars and thinkers. Over almost 200 years ago, they were already beginning to appreciate this Vedic culture.
That is very true. But then, so which is the first scripture did you study? Like, how did you start? Because, I mean, as I understand, you're a full-time devotee. So which is the first thing you studied?
When I came to the Hare Krishna movement?
Yeah,
Or
after,
before that?
of course, after joining the temple.
I mean, my wife and I, we were studying Bhagavad Gita. We
Okay.
purchased Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, and we were already studying that. And slowly, you know, there's 4 principles to the Hare Krishna tradition. One is a vegetarian diet. Also, there's no gambling, no intoxication,
Right.
and there's no illicit sexual connections. So
Right.
there's those 4 things. And anyone can adapt any of these or all of them and gradually make the advancement in Krishna consciousness. Also, the 5th thing, of course, is we have the Japamala, the prayer beads, where we're chanting, we make a vow to say so many prayers on our beads every single day. And so this can be practiced. You don't have to actually formally join, but you could, many people nowadays practice it in their homes. And so
That is very true. So then now, I mean, since you have studied Bhagavad Gita, I'm sure you know the difference between Hindu scriptures or anything, any Indian scriptures or Vedic scriptures. Can you give me some comparative ideas about Vedic philosophy and what is found in the Vedas and compared to Western literature work which is being done, apart from religious books, you know?
I think there's a lot of misconception about the Vedic tradition. In the Vedic tradition, there may be many demigods,
Right.
but there's only one supreme God. And there's
Right.
so many different names for God. Ram,
Right.
Krishna, Hari, and Narayan. And there's, of course, in India, you have the prayers of Vishnu, 1,000 names of Vishnu.
Yeah.
And so, here we have a culture where the essence, the
Right.
main aspect of the culture is to understand the transcendent nature of the human being. So this is the focus. This has always been the focus. And unfortunately, over 1,000-year occupation of India by the Muslims and the Mughals and the British. So it's pretty extraordinary, because even though the occupation of India was for over 1,000 years, still the people of India are very perseverant, and they still honor their stories and honor their religious teachings. And so I don't find anywhere in the world a group of people that relish their stories of their culture so much as the Hindu people. And so they're so connected with these stories. When they watch these stories in the form of drama or movies, they can see these things year after year, but still they're relishing, because it's these are living stories. How do these stories, what do they mean to me? Because these stories contain the essence of Dharma. The Vedic scriptures, the four Vedas, they talk about these things philosophically. They talk about rituals. They talk about the different demigods. But the Mahabharat is the most important literature for this age, because it gives practical examples of the philosophy and how to live the philosophy in these stories of Mahabharat. And they contain a wealth of information, not only spiritual, but also material. And also, just to give you an example, if I may, in the story of Mahabharat, King Yudhisthira, he has established his kingdom, and he's established his capital city of Indraprastha. And after he establishes Indraprastha, now Narada Muni comes to visit him. And Narada Muni, he's a great sage. Of course, he has philosophical understanding, but he also has practical understanding. And he gives Yudhisthira, because Yudhisthira is the leader of the kingdom. And he gives Yudhisthira practical understanding of what it means to be a leader. And so
Right.
he tells Yudhisthira, first of all, he says, there's three things about being a leader. One of the things is that you have to keep your citizens happy. And how to keep the citizens happy? There's a division of two things. One is that they need to live in an environment that is just. Everyone has access to justice. And the other is everyone has access to the economic upliftment. So we need order and we need opportunity. This is the purpose of the leader, whether the leader is in a country or whether the leader of a business, you need to provide the people these various things: order and opportunity. Those things are very important. So it's amazing that Narada Muni is giving so much practical advice to Yudhisthira at this point. And so this is the importance about the essence of leadership. And even after the Battle of Kurukshetra, grandfather Bhishma Dev is lying on a bed of arrows. And
Right.
he also gives Yudhisthira a very practical understanding of the purpose of leadership. And one of the things he says is that to be a good leader, you need good advice, you need good counsel. So you have to surround yourself with counselors that are very erudite and look at things in different ways. You don't want to surround yourself with people that are just going to regurgitate what you think. And so this is the Brahmin community. And the beauty about the Brahmin community is they're not taking any salary. So the Brahmins, they're aloof from any corruption because they're not basing their advice, they're not basing their good counsel on some remuneration of salary. And so these are some of the things that are important to keep the citizens happy and to surround yourself with good counsel.
You have, today's topic is how leadership is defined in Mahabharat. So, apart from this conversation of Yudhishthir and Narad, what are your other findings? I would like you to elaborate more about Mahabharat, because a lot of people have not understood the importance of this scripture because they think it is just a story of two families fighting for the properties, but there is much more to this. Yeah. So please share your
Well,
findings
thank
of
you for that
Mahabharata.
question. And actually, I must, before I forget, I must thank you for your work and your presentations here, because you're bringing on so many interesting people. And I appreciate, like I mentioned that a week or two back, you had Raj Vidam, and
Yes.
he's a great scholar and a personality. And these are very fascinating topics that you're discussing. And I also want to thank the viewers for taking the time to come and listen a little bit. So anyways, there's the leadership is not only explained through instruction, but there's practical guidance. Just like, for instance, the Pandavas, they were living at the house of a Brahmin and his family. This was in Ekachakra. They were almost killed at their summer home that they were staying at. The place burnt down, and they left. And now they were living incognito. They were wandering. No one should know who they are or where they're from. And so they assumed the outfit of Brahmins. And they came to this house at Ekachakra, where there was a friendly Brahmin family. And so anyways, most of the Pandavas were out. They were traveling also with their mother, Queen Kunti. And in the next room, Queen Kunti was hearing that there was a very disturbing conversation. The family, they were saying, oh, one of us has to go. Who shall it be? And so the history is that there's a local Rakshasa, a man-eater, and he's very powerful. And he comes and sometimes he disrupts the entire town. And so the town said, listen, please don't create any disruption. What we'll do is we'll send you one person every month, and with a cartload of food, they'll bring you. And you can devour that person, you can devour the cartload of food we'll send every month. And so now it was going around from house to house, who would they volunteer that month? So now it came to the house of the Brahmin. It was his turn, his family. And they were thinking, and they were crying in the next room. And so Kunti, she said, please excuse me, I heard you, please tell me what's going on. And she said, well, we have to send, one of us has to go to the Rakshasa. And Kunti says, well, where is your king? Don't you have a king that protects you? And they said, you know, the king, he doesn't care about our town because we're not sending so much in taxes to the king. And so Kunti is outraged that how can the king avoid his responsibility to protect the citizens of his kingdom? And even though she was a queen, even though she wasn't a queen to that kingdom, but still she felt so obliged that she said, you don't have to worry about a thing. I'm going to send my son. He'll go for you in your place. I'm going to send my son Bhima. And so Bhima is a very powerful personality. And so, of course, he settles the matter. He goes out there and he kills the Rakshasa. And so this, you know, when you're have these qualities, nobody has to tell you when to turn the qualities on and off. And the qualities, our good qualities should always be turned on. And so the leader, even though Kunti was not the queen of that kingdom, still her attitude of royalty and her attitude of protection was always on, and she had to perform her duty, whether she was in the proper kingdom or not. This is another example in the Mahabharata, and there are dozens of examples.
I would like you to give us one more example about what is, when it comes to right and wrong, dharma and adharma. You know, because a lot of people have, like, for example, I was in London and there was one conversation going on in Nehru Center. There were quite a few scholars who were narrating Bhagavad Gita. The topic was Bhagavad Gita. So quite a few so-called European scholars, they were trying to call Krishna as that he was the killer, he was the one who initiated the war, or he was the one who did not stop the war. So I think that needs to be explained from the point of view of dharma, as in what is right and what is wrong. So please explain that too to our audience.
Thank you for that question. But Krishna himself tells a little story about dharma. Right. And because, you know, dharma is not just a set of rules. Dharma is how we approach the world around us and how we interact with the world and how we interact with the Lord within the heart. So Krishna is telling us the intricacies of dharma, that there was one sadhu, and he lived in the forest, and he was very well known. He had a great reputation of always being truthful. He only spoke the truth, nothing else. And so near his a little hut, his ashram, there was a road, and then there were three travelers. They came rushing by his little ashram, and then they disappeared into the forest. And then 2 moments later, there was a gang of dacoits, of thieves, that they came rushing by, and now they didn't know which way to turn. And they asked him, and everybody knew this sadhu. He was famous for his truthfulness. And that's one of the qualities of dharma, to be truthful. And so they say, well, we're looking for these three people. We want to rob them. Which way did they go? And the sage said, oh, they went that way. And so the thieves, they ran into the forest, and unfortunately they caught the three pilgrims, and they took their valuables, and maybe they even killed him. And so Krishna said, this is really not serving the Dharma, because he spoke the truth. Three people lost their lives. Yes. So how is that serving the Dharma? Sure. We have to utilize our intelligence to be able to serve the Dharma properly. And so, you know, there's so many, just like Yudhisthira, of course, there's that famous story, how Yudhisthira told a lie. Dronacharya, he was asking, somebody mentioned that his son Ashvatthama was killed in the battle at Kurukshetra. And so he didn't know whether to believe the story or not, because the battlefield, it was so vast. There were millions of soldiers. It went on for miles and miles and miles over the valley of Kurukshetra. So he didn't know where his son was, Dronacharya. And he asked Yudhisthira, well, tell me, where is my son dead? I heard that he had been killed. And Yudhisthira, he was reluctant to tell a lie. And so this is where many of the sages are debating, because at the end of the Mahabharat, Yudhisthira has to experience a moment of hell. So did he experience the moment of hell because he told a lie? Or did he experience the moment of hell because he hesitated from telling a lie? So what is the purpose of this lie that Yudhisthira told? He had to say, was the Ashvatthama, was the boy alive? Or well, he wasn't a boy, but he was a warrior. Was he alive or was he dead? And so if he said he was alive, then his father, Dronacharya, would regain strength and vigor. But if he told him his son is dead, then he lost all of his power. So everyone was encouraging him, say that he is dead. And so even Bhima went out and killed an elephant. The elephant's name is Ashvatthama. And so now Yudhisthira said, Ashvatthama, the elephant, is dead. And so now Dronacharya was, so what was the value of saying that he was dead? Because the rule of the leader, and Yudhisthira, he was leading an entire army. The rule of the leader is to protect his army, his people. That's what he has to do. So here he may have been telling a little lie to protect his forces from any further, because if Dronacharya once again stood up, then he is such a powerful fighter, he could kill thousands of people. So Yudhisthira's first obligation was to protect his own troops, his own people. That was Yudhisthira's obligation. And that's what Krishna wanted.
That's a very good example, this Ashwatthama, Narova, Kunjarova, the way he had said in Sanskrit that it was neither either a man or an elephant. But then there are few more examples I would like you to narrate about how and why Krishna did not stop the war. Because that is again another set of discussion, as I told you, that a lot of people have been manipulating it. So let's set that clarity here with your help, that why Krishna did not stop the war.
Well, Krishna came for three reasons. He explains this in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna comes time and again to protect the innocent, to destroy the miscreants, and to protect the Dharma, to establish the Dharma. And so before this whole event, Bhumi, the goddess of the earth, she came to Brahma, and she was saying that I'm being harassed by so many demoniac forces. So many people are killing each other. So many demons are trying to take over the earth planet. So Brahma, he immediately goes to Svetadvip. This is the spiritual island in the material universe. And there he and all of the demigods, Shiva, Indra, Surya, the Agni, so many of the demigods, they all accompany him. Also Bhumi. So each planet has their own goddess or god who presides over that planet. So Bhumi, she's a goddess here on earth. people refer to the earth as Mother Earth. And so the earth and and Brahma and all of the celestial personalities, they appealed to Vishnu, please come and take birth in this world to rectify the great injustice. And so Krishna appeared in this world because he was asked to. And so basically, one of the reasons that he didn't stop the battle of Kurukshetra, because the earth claimed that it was overburdened by so many military forces. Even today, we can see that the earth is burdened by not only military forces, but by so much contamination, so much pollution. This is a great strain and burden on the earth. I was just reading recently, sometimes when they find whales that have floated up onto the land, and they cut open the body of the whale is filled with so many plastics. So many plastics are floating around in the ocean. And when the whale opens their mouth, then the plastics are coming in. And so this is not a very good situation for the earth or for the wildlife on the earth planet. And for the, so there is so much injustice even today. And that's why we say Krishna has come back to rectify this injustice, but he didn't come back in a person. He came back in the sound of his holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And so this is the reason Krishna, he didn't stop. And the funny thing is, at the end of the Mahabharat, Krishna's going back to Dwarka, and he's going through the desert. And there's one sage meditating in the desert. And in his meditation, he's realizing that Krishna's coming. And he jumps up out of his meditation and he takes darshan of Krishna. And he asks, because this sage has been meditating for years and years and years. And he asks, oh, Krishna, tell me, how are the great leaders of our kingdom doing in Hastinapura and in Indraprastha? How are these, the Duryodhan and Yudhisthira and his brothers? How is everybody getting along? Because the last thing he heard before he went into his meditation is there was some strain in the relationship. So he was wondering, and he said, and Krishna told him, he brought him the bad news that all of the Kauravas and the Pandavas, practically speaking, they're all gone. And the sage is indignant. And Krishna explained that they all were killed on the battle of Kurukshetra. And the sage said, Krishna, you are the Supreme Lord. You could do anything you want. Why did you allow this to happen? So even within the Mahabharat, this question is, and Krishna says, what can I do? I'm just coming in the form of a human being. I just have to, I'm giving my advice, but they don't take it. And before the battle, the Pandavas, they were in exile for many years. And so when they came back from their exile, they told Krishna is so kind, he is acting as the Pandavas' envoy, their ambassador. And he goes back to Hastinapura, the Hastinapura, where he meets the blind king Dhritarashtra, and so many people are assembled together there. And Duryodhan is there, and Krishna tells him, listen, the Pandavas don't want a great kingdom, but they need 5 villages, 5 places where they can live. There are 5 Pandavas. This is very interesting. There are 5 Pandavas on one side, and then on the other side, the Kauravas, there's a Duryodhan and 99 brothers. So there's 100 Kauravas on the other side. The Kauravas actually represent a Dharma, and the Pandavas, they represent Dharma. So even if 5% of the population is engaged in Dharma, this will counterweight the 95% of the population that is not engaged in Dharma, even if we can get 5% of the engaged. So this is why this education and what you're doing and what so many other devotees and scholars are trying to do is to educate the public in general. And like I said earlier, that in India, there was the subjugation, the occupation of India was for over 1,000 years. So it's to the credit of the Hindu people that they persevered. You know, the occupation was also in Iran and Afghanistan and Pakistan. There's hardly any Hindu ideas in these countries. So that the Hindus in India have persevered through 1,000 years of occupation is an extraordinary thing. It's to their credit. And that's why we say we have to give credit where credit is due. This is an English saying. But you know, the interesting thing, when the British were occupying India, that's the last thing they wanted to do. They would rather say, oh, there's some people that came from someplace else. We don't know where they came from. The Aryans came, maybe there was an invasion, maybe there was a migration, we don't know. But they settled in India, and now this whole culture, the Vedic culture, the Vedas and all of the scriptures are because of the Aryans that came from someplace else. Oh, this wasn't originated in India. No, that's the last thing they want to say. It came from someplace else.
So you don't believe, right? So we are the Aryans and we always lived here, isn't it?
Exactly. Aryan, the word Arya in Sanskrit means one who is noble. It doesn't mean some ethnic group. It means the quality, those people who are noble. So people all over the world, anywhere you can find Aryan people. But the idea is this, and you know, there's many scholars, they're debating back and forth, they're giving so many different reasons, but I'm looking at it from a human point of view, from an emotional point of view, how this immediately can be dissipated, this idea of Aryan migration. Because, you know, there's so many Indians that are living here in America. I know so many friends that I have. But when they come to America, they don't forget about India. So the Aryans came to India, but what is found in their scriptures? What is found in the Vedic literatures? They are glorifying the Ganges River. They are glorifying the Saraswati River. They're glorifying the Himalayan mountains. These are the most honorable, worshipable things in their writings, in their teachings. Why don't, if they're from someplace else, why don't they mention where they're from?
Exactly.
They don't, because if a Hindu comes to America, or if somebody from Africa moves to America, then, you know, they'll also mention, they'll reminisce, they'll think about where they came from and what experiences they had in their previous land. But there's no mention.
One more thing. So there are still many scholars in Europe, they still believe in propagating the theory of Aryan invasion, which I was arguing that it is only 100 years old theory, only said by one scholar and then few others who continued, and few only that those academicians, those who follow, you know, that particular tradition and belief, they only follow. But there are no scriptures, there are no literature, there are no gurus, there is absolutely nowhere in the world, not even in Tibetan, not in even the Buddhist literature, nowhere it is mentioned. So how come it is just cooked up by one man, Macaulay, and 100 years back, and only during that era he said that, and then the whole world has to believe? How can we believe a man who was just one guy and one or two guys, like, I mean, just one team, and only once they have spoken this, and then the arguments which I get in return is that people forget. I said, how can that be, that no scriptures, no literature, no folklore, no, those traditional stories which we have from ancestors, nowhere it is mentioned that we came from somewhere else.
Mhm. No, so they've forgotten where they've come from.
That's the arguments they give me,
You
that
know,
they must have forgotten.
well, with my own personal experience, I came from Germany. I
Okay.
was only in Germany for a few years. I came to America when I was 5 years old. I don't remember much about Germany. So if you're coming to a strange place as a little baby, then you are forgiven that you don't remember. But why would people who are adults travel from one place to another and not remember where they came from? So this doesn't really make any sense. But one thing I'd like to mention, just because the British, this was their scheme. They needed to bring down the Vedic culture a number of levels, because when they came there, they saw how exalted the Vedic tradition was. And so it was a very, very beautiful tradition. There were no beggars in the street during the Vedic times. The British created this. This is also, if you've read, for instance, there's a very popular book here in America called The Grapes of Wrath. This takes place during the Depression, and it's about one family who lives in Oklahoma, and they hear that there's a lot of work. They actually get a flyer. There's people are passing out flyers. There's a lot of work in California. So there are hundreds and thousands of people going to California to find work. And so also the British, India was a rural country. There were a few big cities, but primarily there was a rural country. And then the British brought all of these thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and they encouraged them to go to the cities so the British can have their cheap labor. They had the cheap labor, and people were streaming in from the villages. Now, Mahatma Gandhi knew this propaganda, and that's why he wanted to get back to a simple rural village existence. And again, they didn't listen to him. They wanted to maintain their Western mindset. But Mahatma Gandhi, in the last years of his life, he was encouraging Nehru to let's go back, because the icon image of Gandhi is him by the spinning wheel. So that means we have to be self-sufficient. Let's grow our own food. Let's make our own clothing. Let's not depend upon outside forces and outside influence. But this is what's going on all over the world now, that there's a multi-global network of supplies that have to be transported over thousands of miles. That, like they're in China or wherever they're being made, these things have to be transported, and it's ruining the environment. This transportation is very costly to the environment. This to drill the oil, and so this is a great problem today. And even Srila Prabhupada, who was a student of Mahatma Gandhi at one time, he also wants the people to get back. His motto, and the motto that he established for New Vrindavan, was simple living, high thinking. Let's get back to a simpler, less consumeristic lifestyle, because this consumerism and this building up of armed forces is a great pain to the earth planet. And that's why Prabhupada came to America, to bring this message of Bhagavad Gita. He was not embarrassed by the message, or by the British in the 19th century. They were trying to embarrass the senior scholars in India. You are listening to these stories from the Puranas, and you believe that they actually happened? So the British, what they did in the 19th century, they created 1,000 schools all over India. to recondition the mind of the Indian. And so many people, we're still suffering from this indoctrination. So that's why Prabhupada said that the 200 years of British rule was far more damaging than 800 years of a Mughal rule. And so the British were very insidious, trying to undermine this entire Vedic culture. So now I'm glad over the last 20 years, there are people who are speaking up, and people who are great scholars like Raj Vidam and other people. I haven't had the time to listen to so many, but I'm so happy that over the last 20 or 25 years, these topics are now in the fore to reclaim the history of India. And one of the things about this history, like I mentioned earlier, is that the main thing that India is noteworthy for is to present this exalted culture, this culture based on transcendence, understanding transcendent knowledge. There's so many fields of knowledge, but let's understand the transcendent knowledge. Where else are you going to get that from?
Exactly. This knowledge of spirituality lies only in India and only in Bharatvarsh. As on today, maybe in earlier times it was spread all over, but with the times, Europe also has forgotten their past, and even the other countries. Fortunately, Japanese and Korean and few Chinese, they accept that their faith and their belief system comes from India. So they acknowledge. Like when I go to Japan, I've heard this from their scholars and those who study Buddhism. But tell me one thing: if we want to invoke this knowledge in the minds of Europeans, because currently they are suffering like anything, this Brexit issue, and then those so-called refugees who are just taking over the continent, the whole of Europe. What is the solution? How can we help them out?
You mean the refugees and everything?
No, the Europeans who are the victim of these refugees.
Oh, okay. You know, that the thing is that, there has to be kind of a re-education, just like the British tried to re-educate the Hindus. So now the Hindus, and this is Prabhupada's whole mood, is to go there and to re-educate the Westerners. Because even the Westerners, when they look at the Greek culture, for instance, which is the epitome of their exalted Western tradition, is coming out of the Greeks. So they acknowledge, oh, the Greek were great scholars, they were great scientists, they were great mathematicians, they wrote so many literatures, they were great philosophers and great playwrights. But when it comes to their religion, oh, that's mythology. Because the Greek religion, they believed in all of these Zeus and so many different personalities. So the Western mind, can't conceive of these things, because, to tell you the truth, there's 4 ages. We're in the 4th age, the final age. And so we can't understand the mindset and the different nature of the previous ages. Just to give you an idea, I don't have my cell phone with me, but sometimes I ask people to pick up their cell phone. I have my mouse. And so I ask people, take out your cell phone for a moment. We lived 100 years ago or 200 years ago, and I told you that this little device can take your picture. And not only that, this little device can talk to somebody halfway around the world and even see them. And this little device is also a recording device, and it can record your voice. And this little device also can get you onto an amazing encyclopedia that you can get any type of knowledge you want from. And if you're walking in the dark, this little device, all you do is push a little button and it will be your flashlight through the darkness. and they would say, oh, you're crazy. And they would look at this little, how is this little, if you told a person 100 years ago that this little device can do all of these things, they would think you're crazy, that this is mythology. And so the Vedic culture was also very exalted culture, but on a much higher level than people can imagine. Just like, who can imagine 100 years ago a little device performing so many different things? It's unimaginable. And so the Vedic paradigm in the previous 3 ages was much more sophisticated than anyone can imagine. And so therefore, when they hear about these things, their conclusion, oh, mythology. That's mythology. What can you do?
So rightly said. This is coming from you.
so-
I'm so happy that you are saying this.
You're a
not
very
me.
passionate speaker. I like your presentations that I've heard. And so we need to be passionate about this Vedic culture. And if we meet some people, you know, like Prabhupada said that he is simply a postal peon. He's just a mailman. He's presenting a letter, just like the mailman gives a letter. And so what you do with the letter, that's your business. You can read the letter, you can throw the letter away. And so we can humbly present these points to other people. And they may accept or they may not accept. We don't have to get into a big argument. I don't want to get into a big argument with people. They may accept or they may not accept. Okay, you know, that's your prerogative. Even Krishna gives Arjuna at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, he said, I've given you this instruction. Now you can do whatever you like. It's your choice. Krishna is giving the Arjuna the option to do whatever he likes, to believe it or not to believe it. So whatever one, you know, that's their business, not my business.
Yes, I understand. The reason I was asking this question is because I thought if there are seekers, then we can reach out to them. But if somebody is sleeping, if somebody is pretending to be sleeping, then we cannot do anything. Because if that urge doesn't come from him and from inside, then it's not of no use. And of course, I think because it is Kali Yuga and it is a very difficult time. So I really wonder how many souls will be elevated and how many of us will be able to go to our higher consciousness to even understand even the fraction of Krishna. I mean, it's a long journey, even if we think we know everything, but it is still a real long journey. So I think my one last question to you, Prabhuji, is what do you think we should change in our education system? You have already mentioned that there are problems, and there were schools which were created to demean the Vedic culture. So what is your counter arguments about the content? What exactly the content needs to be changed?
Well, there's so many courses already, and those are all fine. We don't have to throw away any courses. But like when Prabhupada was here in America, he would say, you know, where in the colleges, everybody wants to be happy. Where are the courses on how to be happy? There's no course on how to be happy, how to live happily. We all want to live happily. And so he said, this is the Bhagavad Gita. He said he's introducing Bhagavad Gita for the only reason to help people be happy. So I think, you know, and the best thing, and that's why I'm writing my books. One of my books is Mahabharat, The Eternal Quest. And I'm trying to present these stories in a mindset, in a way where people can appreciate the purpose of these stories in maybe people who don't even have any background or have any understanding of what the Vedic culture is or what the Vedic tradition is. My book has been used in several college courses here in America. And so we need to get these and I've understand you've also written several books. So we need to get these information out into the public arena and also into the schools as early as possible. Even here in America, even recently, within the last 5 or 10 years, they're still producing textbooks that are agreeing with the Aryan invasion theory. Even though it's a theory, they are teaching it as if it was an actual fact. And so we also have to present the Mahabharat. What more wonderful story is there in and the discussions? There could be so many different types of discussions based on the Mahabharat. Social order, and there's all sorts of writings on philosophy in India. That they have different branches of philosophy, different branches of scientific knowledge that is available from the Vedic literatures. So let them start with the Mahabharata and with the Bhagavad Gita as
I think
early
that
as
is,
possible.
yeah, that is the best beginning to know Indian culture, the Vedic culture. So, Prabhuji, I really enjoyed this having this conversation. I still have many questions, but then we are almost 1 hour now, close
Sure.
to 1 hour. So, of course, we'll continue our discussion in some other time for some other topic, because the examples which you have given about Mahabharata and what is the leadership quality, how it is defined in the scripture, and also by the act of say Kunti and other people you mentioned, Yudhishthir. So I hope our audience will also understand that certain epics, certain books are written in such a way that they are timeless. Whatever situations are defined in Mahabharata, we all are facing it even today. And I hope they will learn something out of it from this conversation, and we'll meet up again. So thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Can I may say one thing?
Sure,
Is that,
please.
the thing about the Mahabharata is that it's presenting the qualities of a leader. And
Right.
so in most of the world, people don't know what it means to be a good leader. We've lost that definition of what it means to be a leader. We can go to the Mahabharata and get a definition and practical experiences from the Pandavas and others in the Mahabharata on what it means to be a good leader. So let me thank you again. And so it's a pleasure to talk with you. And please accept my respects. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.